For Wednesday, the 19th of July. I'm Stephen Ridgway. There is a flaw in the Google Cloud build that enables privilege escalation and code tampering. So, newly discovered Google Cloud build vulnerability allows attackers to tamper with and inject malware into images stored in the artifact registry. Which is, by the way, Google's repository for hosting software artifacts such as packages and container images and so on and so forth. It is apparently relatively simple to exploit. Doesn't require very much in the way of expertise, and there is exploit proof of concept floating around. So even those that can't work it out for themselves will be able to find out from having a look. Google has at one in the not too distant past attempted to mitigate this particular risk. However, there are indications that their fix was not a complete fix to the bug, and there are still some scenarios where the vulnerability is still exploitable. So watch for more in this space from Google if you use the cloud build functionality. So in the meantime, limiting privileges would be a good thing. This particular vulnerability appears to leverage the default service count that's created when you enable the cloud build API. So it would be good to have a look at what the privileges are for that particular account, and ensure that they are tied down to only those things which it should be able to do. So I recommend, if you're using Google Cloud to host your artifacts, then have a look at this. Make sure you are keeping an eye out for when this has been fixed. New vulnerabilities have been discovered in Citrix's NetScaler ADC and NetScaler Gateway. These are being exploited actively in the wild at the moment. Citrix strongly recommends to install patches or upgraded versions ASAP. So if you are using NetScaler tools, then take a look at in the Bleeping Computer article that will link to this briefing. It sets out which versions to aim for, or you can go directly to the Citrix website and get those there. So basically, the vulnerabilities are around cross-site scripting and privilege escalation and so on and so forth. So definitely worth it, especially as NetScaler, is a part of the security tooling. If you are using them, check to make sure that you are on a version which is not vulnerable. And then here's a variation on something which we've seen ourselves. There is a trend for adversaries to imitate parts of antivirus or endware protection suites in order to deliver malware. In this particular case, there is evidence that a attacker group is impersonating Sophos to deliver ransomware as a service under the internal banner of Sophos Encrypt. Usual sort of thing. The encryptor, basically looks to be a reasonably acceptable piece of Sophos code, but it actually isn't. It is basically a piece of ransomware. The encryptor does attempt to reach out to a specific IP address, which is in the article that we'll link to the briefing. Um, if you prevent network access or you block access to that particular address, it doesn't actually stop the um, it doesn't stop the malware from running. However, it does then prompt a whole load of other questions that will be asked. Usual sort of stuff. It gives you links to places that you're supposed to go, although it is unclear whether the intended site is the one that you actually end up with, because it does seem to just direct you to the affiliate site for the ransomware as a service group. So yeah, watch out for this one. If you're using Sophos, just make sure that if you are prompted by things that are pretending to be Sophos, that they really are what you're expecting them to do. It is worth at least monitoring traffic to the C2 server that is referenced in this particular article. And finally, a bit of a blast from the past. There is an uptick in malware being spread by USB sticks again. It's an ongoing cyber espionage campaign targeting organizations across various industries. But it is linked to or associated with Chinese, potential Chinese threat actor using USB flash drives to load malware for stealing sensitive information from host systems. The malware has been dubbed Sogu. It can copy itself to removable drives that are plugged into an infected host. So, this is all a blast from the past, isn't it? But so it just goes to show that whilst I think the risk of shared media has kind of dropped off the radar a little bit in many people's minds, it's still out there. It's still seen as being a viable, although somewhat slower, method of distributing malware. But if you're being specifically targeted, it is still, I think, a perfectly reasonable and very functional way of getting malware onto your machine. So watch out if you are sharing USB sticks with friends, colleagues, whatever you do. If you're using them to distribute files, be it whatever it may be aware that this stuff does go on. Make sure that you've got up-to-date endpoint protection. Make sure you've got some controls. Hopefully you've got some controls over USB devices, although I do appreciate that's easier said than done. But don't forget that that particular vector for transmitting malware hasn't gone away. It's just now used more on very specifically targeted attacks, rather than being the old-fashioned generic thing of chuck a handful of infected USB sticks around in the car park and see who picks one up, kind of thing. So anyway, that's all from me for today. I hope you have a good Wednesday, and I shall speak to you all again